Hello and welcome to this edition of Press Conference. I'm your host, Jim DeLorenzo, the principal of Jim DeLorenzo Public Relations. You can find me online at jimdelorenzo.com. I have found that my career in public relations is my true vocation, telling the stories of my colleagues and clients in a compelling way to drive sales, membership, and awareness. I've been blessed in that career, and I have many ideas that might be helpful to you, the viewer. Please feel free to contact me directly, either by email at jim@jhdenterprises.com or by cell phone or text message at 215-266-5943. I would enjoy a conversation with you and finding out ways that we might be able to work together to help public relations help you. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. In my career, I've had the good fortune to meet many interesting people: athletes, entrepreneurs, reporters, coaches, authors, executives, editors, entertainers, and innovators. I met my guest today online, as we are doing a lot of things in this new era of business and communication. My guest today is Christopher Jerjian, the founder and CEO of Kiwi Offices. Christopher has been in the commercial real estate industry for over 30 years, predominantly in the office space sector. It is his belief that this sector has been going in the wrong direction for the last decade. He had his epiphany after the 2008 financial crisis. Over the last 3 decades, he has witnessed a significant decline in the volume and size of deals, especially in Class B and C properties, which has led to a market where landlords have to steal tenants from other landlords. Christopher came to the realization that this is clearly not a sustainable business model. He looked for and then created a new niche which addresses a compelling market need and offers sustainable growth. He created Kiwi Offices, which is branding office space in South Jersey and in metropolitan Philadelphia. His company offers convenient offices for all budgets, which is what he believes is the future of flexible office space. I'm pleased to welcome Christopher Jerjian to the show today. Thank you for agreeing to be my guest. As I mentioned partially in my open, I encountered you for the first time through some email marketing that you had done for some of your properties, and I was fascinated I was getting these marketing messages from you prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then they continued through the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was always impressed by the upbeat tone and the positive messages that you were delivering in those marketing messages. And it's been fascinating to me to see how you were going about business. Obviously, Christopher, this is a new era for business, but certainly for office spaces. Can you tell me a little bit about what led you to start Kiwi Offices and how you got to where you are today?
Well, Jim, thank you for having me. It's been quite a journey, and like you mentioned in your intro, 2008 financial crisis triggered a lot of it for me, because the office sector never really recovered in the aftermath. And sitting around 3-4 years trying to make deals that just couldn't close because it was all a numbers game. And once the numbers go below your cost, it really doesn't make sense. So I was getting all these calls for small office space. And truth be told, that's been the case for the decades I've been in the industry. It's just that nobody took those inquiries seriously. I mean, you have to understand that the model of traditional office space was you as a landlord didn't market direct to the public. It was the brokers that bought the deals, and a broker would never entertain a 200 square foot deal.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. It's not enough commission to fill the gas tank. So effectively what happened was those inquiries were literally ignored. And 2008 comes along, we go through the financial crisis. By 2010, 2011, one of our projects, Ibis Plaza, was over 50% vacant.
Wow.
And here I am trying to think, how can I fill this space up? And I'm getting these calls still for small space. So I put on my thinking cap and think, look, there's clearly a demand for this, and nobody's fulfilling it. There was Regis, but Regis is actually a very expensive model for small businesses,
Sure.
especially for startups. So I thought to myself, look, I have 26,000 square foot of contiguous space here. Let's convert it to small space. And in 2014, that's what we did. And we branded it Ibis Express Offices because the building was called Ibis Plaza. And that's what I call our Generation 1 project.
And that was in Hamilton, New Jersey, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And that space filled up within 18 months. And much higher rental values, much higher margins, because, you know, when you're dealing with small space, you can ask for more rent. And we had no competition. And I would say that it was a slam dunk. Every time some small user came in, you know, they see the space, they go, how much? When can I move in? I'll take it. And that was, you know, the birth of what I call Kiwi Offices, because Kiwi is the second generation of Ibis Express Offices, which we built in 2016 in Mount Laurel.
Okay.
We bought a vacant building. It had a couple of tenants in it, traditional tenants. We retrofitted the entire building into the small spaces that we did in Ibis. Improved technology, improved space design. What we learned from Generation 1, our Generation 1 project.
Sure.
And now we're on to another location in Cherry Hill, which was supposed to be delivered this year, but because of COVID, we put a hold on it because I didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Right.
But having said that, it was kind of a really good marriage between, you know, the small space and COVID, because people could rent a one-room office and not be and still be COVID compliant, and that kind of accelerated all our leasing to the point where we're literally 95% occupied in the Mount Laurel location.
That's fantastic. Now, how did the COVID-19 situation change the way, or did it change the way you were marketing to tenants?
It did. What it did for us was we learned that the model works under stress. And let me explain that. I lost between March and August, we lost about 40% of our tenants in Mount Laurel. But having lost those tenants, we gained more than 40% with new tenancies.
Wow.
So the person who needed the space because they were physically meeting people couldn't make ends meet. So they asked to get out their lease. And we made a lot of accommodations, a lot of juggling, a lot of accommodations. But effectively, we got new tenants who needed the space the way it was. So I would say that, you know, it'll probably revert back to the older model as things open up. But, you know, it clearly showed that it was the model works under a lot of different circumstances.
Interesting. I had read an interview with you, Christopher, and it said, you had said that in the age of COVID-19, all your assumptions will be tested and challenged. You need to be flexible, focused, and deliberate in your response to market forces. Listen to the market, give people the value they want, be responsive, be consistent, and treat them the same way you would like to be treated, all with a smile and gratitude. And that's actually a very compelling method of doing business in any environment. But I think that stating that and reinforcing that in this age of the pandemic and its aftermath, that really resonates with me, because I think of how, as you said, you had 40% of your tenants getting out, but you had more than 40% coming in that wanted the space. And it's interesting that the way you set up the offices at Kiwi Offices is such a flexible and modification. You can make modifications to the layout. You can do things to suit the individual tenant, which I think is something that is missing today. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, everything that you quoted me saying is true. And unfortunately, in the office industry in general, the traditional thinking was the landlord didn't have to do anything but just lease the space. And actually, landlord-tenant relationships were never fantastic. in our industry. It was probably so archaic in its way of thinking, in that it was driven by the lending industry that wants you to get them long-term tenancies. And
Yes.
There was no real sort of customer service beyond that. And when you go into the small businesses sector of the industry, you're dealing with individuals who want customer service, who demand it. And that's kind of our ethos, that we give you turnkey space. We try to make it work for you. We actually even, host events and do stuff to sort of introduce tenants to each other. So there's like an ecosystem.
Sure.
But we're not co-working.
Right.
It's still office space. It's still your own space. Nobody's sort of handing your mail or handing your phone calls. It's all independent.
Right.
And, we have, where the flexible comes in, you can sign a 1-year lease, you can sign a month-to-month lease. So if you don't know where your business is going to be 12 months from now, that's a pretty good offer, because not many people offer a 1-year deal.
Yes.
And then you've also got, everything is included. You're not paying different bills to different people, like your internet, your electric. Everything is holistically priced, and at least you know what your bottom line is, which is really important to small businesses.
Yeah, especially nowadays, because you don't know. You want to be able to control your expenses, but you also want to be able to have an idea of what's going to be in the future. And
Yes.
if you've got this 1-year lease or a month-to-month lease with Kiwi Offices, you can kind of predict, okay, here's what I'm going to need in 90 days. Here's what I'm going to need in 180 days, and have a good forecasting model that you can work with.
So effectively, I created a new niche in the office sector. It's what I call multi-office, because you have multifamily, which is residential,
Right?
And the economic model is very similar to that, except for your tenant base is commercial and not residential.
Okay.
The
I like that
office
idea.
sector doesn't have that. So it's kind of a hybrid between multifamily and office. So that's why I call it multi-office. And again, the traditional lenders look at it, how can you have 1-year deals? There's no longevity to this project. And my response would be to them, well, look at multifamily. It's the same concept. They're 1-year contracts.
Right.
They're apartments. And actually, this is a lot better, because you can evict a tenant, a commercial tenant. You can't evict a residential tenant that easily. So, it's actually a very good diversified model. Instead of having one tenant that can basically, in today's market, flake out on you.
Right. And
you're less likely to have 300 tenants flake out on you.
Right. You're at the mercy of that one tenant, as opposed to being able to work with a multi office situation. I want to get back to that. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, Christopher, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how you hit on the model of the multi-office program, because I think that that's fascinating, because you hear a lot of other things and you hear other names, but this is one of the first I've heard embracing this model. So we'll be right back after these messages with Christopher Jerjian of Kiwi Offices.
Listen, what will make your event simply beautiful? Is it your attire, your decorations, your entertainment? Well, join me, Alicia Simone, as I chat with some amazing vendors and clientele who will share their stories and images and their experiences. Right here on RVN TV, Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and Wednesday at 4 p.m. It will be simply beautiful. See you then.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back to Press Conference on RVN TV. My guest today is Christopher Jerjian, the CEO of Kiwi Offices. And Christopher, we were talking during the break. I asked you how, I know that when you started the business, when you started Kiwi Offices, you had said that you went out and looked for a model that you could put into place, and then you created your own model. And I'm curious as to how you got to this point. You had mentioned to me that you were starting to get phone calls. You couldn't find a model that looked like you wanted to do it, so you created your own. And what led you to create that?
Trial and error. Put down a set of plans. I worked with the architect. I actually designed the initial space myself, and then it got improved with the architect to meet code and etc. And that wasn't actually such a hot layout. We learned, from that first project what we should and shouldn't do in the next project, and it was actually sort of an evolution, I would say, pretty much intact in the general principles of what we were trying to do, but there was all the fine details is where it really makes a difference.
And what drove you to work on this model? Was the demand there, or were you getting calls from people?
Sorry, I didn't catch that because it was breaking up.
What led you to this model? Like, were you getting calls from people, or were you seeing things happening in the marketplace?
Yeah. We were getting calls for small space for years, and I decided that, let's do it. And people who would come and give you their opinion, do you have this or do you have that? And that kind of leads you to sort of drill down with everybody to see, what else are they looking for, so you can provide that. One of the big things is, like, we have spaces which are 2-3 rooms. So it'll be an owner with a couple of employees. And if they fire someone on a Friday, you have to come and change the locks. that can cost 150, 100, $200 on a Friday evening. And that usually the tenant pays. Well, we invested in the second generation. We invested in electronic locks.
You had mentioned that to me. Yes.
Everybody would have their own code to access, and if somebody got fined, you just remove the code.
Interesting.
And there was no cost to anybody. And it's really an amenity. And then when COVID started, as I was saying to you during the break, that investment really sort of became even more productive, in that I was able to do remote showings because I could unlock doors remotely. So we have cameras in all the common areas. So the client would come in, I wouldn't have to show up. So if the client didn't turn up, no skin off my nose, I'm still in front of my computer working. But if they showed up, I would give them a tour, and then they would leave the space, and I would say goodbye, and we were on the phone together. And they saw the spaces they wanted to see. I could direct them in the building, show them the amenities. And because what I didn't mention was, every one of our properties has 2 conference rooms in the building for use by the tenants only. And there's an online calendar, they book it, and it's included in the rent. We have no additional sort of nickel and diming of trying to get more rent out of people, more fees. It's a holistic price. You know what your downside is, and we deliver that. I think people love that just on its own, because everywhere else they go, they're always getting nickel and dime.
Sure.
And it's, as a consumer, I hate that. So I try to pass what I would like.
And what has the reaction been? What has the reaction been from your tenants and the clients? How many of them have been with you for a while? How many of them are coming in and out? Has there been a good mix of clients, and are they very happy with what they get?
It's a very good question. I have my ideal clients who, one has been with me from the very start and has upgraded and downgraded in size depending on the flow of their business. And that's what they love about it, because, if business starts growing, he can rent, a couple of more rooms, and, it's a win-win. But my ideal clients, I would say about 40% of my client base, they're the ones who just renew automatically every year because that's all they want. They're not looking to do anything different. And then you have the people who come in for projects, so they'll rent for 6 months or 1 year, and they're transitional, but it is what it is. I mean, that's the service that we're offering. And then you'll have those who, will grow and leave, and then you've got those who'll downsize and come to you from larger, and right now I think there's a lot of people who are just renting one room office or a 2-room office for key employees. Everybody else is working from home, but they have a place to call, HQ.
Right.
And if they have to have a meeting, there's a conference room, and it works out really well.
That's wonderful. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that's been long overdue, especially in this region. Where do you find people react to Kiwi Offices in relation to? You mentioned co-working before. I know that a lot of attention was paid to WeWork. You mentioned Regis as a competitor. Yeah. Where do they see? How do they see the difference between those types of office spaces and what you are offering?
Well, I think co-working is a completely different animal in that, let me retract that. It's very similar in that they're small users.
Okay.
But you don't have the privacy, you don't have the continuity in a co-working space. And you hear horror stories, but you hear horror stories about anywhere. There's always people who have sort of a bad experience. But generally, co-working, it's great for someone who only needs a place to go for a couple of hours and print some stuff out, meet someone, and then go back home.
Right.
That's great. It works for that type of user.
Sure.
But if you're sort of looking for a serious place for your business, it really doesn't meet the requirements of that. I mean, there are some co-working places that have private offices, but with little privacy, because you don't, even if you leave stuff in there, there's always people coming in and out in the management of the space. I like to compare co-working to being in a hotel.
Okay.
And being in a Kiwi office is like being in an apartment, a furnished apartment.
I gotcha.
Like, you really do have your privacy. You have your own autonomy. You have your own USPS mailbox, so the post comes directly to you. There's nobody sort of coming and delivering your mail to you internally. And actually, the really good part about Kiwi is you can register it on Google My Business, which you can't if you're in a co-working space.
That's true.
Because the co-working space is a tenant themselves.
Right.
And you're not really a subtenant, you're a licensee. So
that's interesting. I
these are the small
thought of
nuances.
that. Yeah. Now, you had mentioned your ideal client. What would your ideal tenant look like? What does your ideal tenant look like?
My ideal tenant is a small business or a professional that is looking for full-time space or even part-time space for that matter, because I have really small offices where someone who only needs it 3 days a week but wants to have a permanent location for his mail and address. So if someone Googles their business, they'll see they're in an office building. But it's got to be really a small user. Now, the small user could be a salesperson who works for a really large corporation who needs, and they need a satellite space for, sales meeting and a couple of the local reps to work out of that office. So, when I say small businesses, I actually really mean small users, lawyers, IT professionals. I've had, when we were in Ibis, the best one I had was a soft toy collector.
Okay.
He collected soft toys like teddy bears and all the different toys they have, and he put shelves in the space, and they were just like everything was marked, and he had all these, and he was trading in as a hobby.
Okay.
And his wife wouldn't let him do it from home, so
he had a little.
He rented a small space.
Yeah.
So there are definitely multiple uses for it.
That's neat.
And I believe he's still a tenant there. So
that's pretty cool. I can see myself doing that. Yeah. Now, you said you opened the location in Mount Laurel in 2016. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And the one in Cherry Hill, you wanted to open in 2020. You're hoping to open it early in 2021?
Correct.
And is there, how would people, if they were interested in getting in touch with you, Christopher, how would they connect with you?
Well, you can go to our website. That's kiwioffices.com. That's Kiwi, as in the fruit, and then offices, plural, one word, .com. And the website tells you exactly what we have to offer. It has a place where you can book a tour on our calendar. So you pick the day and time, and it's quite easy. The nice thing about the Cherry Hill, we've got some improvements in the model in the Cherry Hill location. So a bit like a hotel where you can have interconnecting rooms, we've done it so you can have interconnecting suites. So if you need 2 or 3 additional suites, you can actually interconnect them by opening doors on each side. So that was one of the other nice features there. And a tenant in Mount Laurel will be able to book the conference room in the Cherry Hill location and vice versa.
Oh, that's neat.
So if you have clients in the Cherry Hill area, but you're based in the Mount Laurel office, you can actually book the conference room in Cherry Hill and use it. And again, it's all included.
That's fantastic. Well, I wish you success, continued success.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the opening of the new Cherry Hill location. And I thank you very much, Christopher, for being my guest today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And if any of you viewers today wish to get in contact with Christopher, you can check out the website, kiwioffices.com, or you can reach out to me via email at jim@jhdenterprises.com or by phone at 215-266-5943. I would be very happy to put you in contact with Christopher. Again, thank you for being my guest today, Christopher, and I want to remind our viewers that I look forward to hearing your stories. Please feel free to give me a call or email me. And remember, everyone has a story, but not everyone knows how to tell that story. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all again very, very soon.